Hey sports fan, today is just going to be my January wrap up. I thought we could sit down and chat about what I read in January. This one's probably going to be pretty short. I only actually finished 2 books in January. I only gave myself a TBR of 3 and I finished the third one like on February 3rd. So it was really close, but I didn't quite get everything read in January that I wanted to. I think I just got too busy, you know? Life comes at you fast. I did get a couple of things read. The first of which was Volume 1 of Ajin Demi-Human. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. For the most part, Ajin follows our main character, Kei Nagi. Kei Nagi is kind of a normal high school student. He's a little bit standoffish and cold, but he's very focused on his studies because he wants to be successful. One day, Kei is hit by a freaking truck and he should be dead, but he gets back up. That is when we learn that Kei is one of these mysterious creatures called Ajin. Ajin are, for all intents and purposes, immortal humans. When an Ajin is killed, their bodies resuscitate. They can be killed over and over and over again, and they just come back. They are effectively immortal. Some of them have extra little abilities or powers, like they can use their voice to stop humans in their tracks. And some of them can see and produce what is called a black ghost. And this is a corporeal being, entity, that humans can't see, but Ajin can see, and they can affect the world around them. So they can be used to like fight or drive a car or trip somebody. Things like that. In this world, Ajin are not hunted necessarily, but they are tracked and scooped up by different government entities who say that they're doing research, but really it's more like torture and experimentation. So needless to say, Kei freaks out. He goes on the run and kind of antics ensue from there. We get the perspective of Kei and some of his like history, and we see the perspective of his sister and how Kei has always been a little bit off. And we get a perspective of Kei's only actual real friend. We also get these government workers who are hunting him, trying to track him down. There's another subplot with a whole different group of Ajin who are not quite as scared and freaked out as Kei is. This is a great introduction to the story. If you've seen the anime, it follows it like beat for beat. It is almost identical. I thought this was a really good introduction to the story. I have the second and third, so I will be getting to those soon-ish, hopefully. I think that Ajin is a really good manga for people who like things like Attack on Titan, because one of the really big themes is humanity and morality. What does it mean to be human? How can you lose your humanity? What is morality in the context of these people who look human but maybe aren't, and then the people who are human but behave like they're not? I think it's a fun, interesting manga. I enjoyed reading it. The art is absolutely phenomenal. The art is amazing. In visual storytelling, it's so important that the art be engaging, and the art in this is top-notch. It's excellent. I really, really enjoy it. I did have a couple of things that bothered me while I was reading. The first is that sometimes the story feels a little bit juvenile, and I think that that's intentional because our main character is like 15 or 16, so he's not an adult. He's a kid who thinks that he knows everything, but really he doesn't know shit. And the other thing that bothered me a little bit is not the fault of the story, at least I don't think it is. I think it's a little bit of the translation. Especially during dialogue, the verbiage felt very clunky and kind of strange, and the word choice felt a little bit weird. I do think that this is an issue with the translation, not with the actual writing. I know that that's something you kind of just have to take when you read something that's been translated into English, but it did feel a little bit off, and it did make me have to go back and reread a couple of conversations because I was like, what is actually being said here, just because of the word choice. Overall, Ajin Volume 1, really good. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. Again, if you've enjoyed the anime, you will probably enjoy the manga. I'm really looking forward to where the manga and the anime split, because I've seen the anime, I think I've watched it like twice, and I really enjoy it, but I'm really interested to see what direction the manga takes. Next in January, I read The Strength of the Few by James Islington, obviously. This was great. I gave it 5 stars, really enjoyed it. It is action-packed, heart-pounding, it's so exciting. This book just grabs you and does not let go. The Strength of the Few picks up immediately after the events of The Will of the Many, so there's not like a crazy time jump. Don't be scared that you're gonna get into this and it's been 7 years. No, it's like minutes, almost no time has passed. We immediately get back to this and this world and this story. As with most novels that start out in like a dark academia setting, we've moved past academics and we're into the actual political world. The Strength of the Few has a lot of politics going on in it. Everything that's happening in one of the storylines is almost entirely political, and it's actually entertaining. I don't always find political intrigue to be intriguing, but in this case, I did enjoy it, and I did appreciate reading a lot of the politics and getting to know these characters and seeing how this world works kind of behind the curtain. The Strength of the Few does continue to follow Vis in Catan and all of the politics and everything that he's trying to do and discover, but it also introduces 2 other plot lines that are kind of happening simultaneously, and I thought that that was so creative. It was so interesting to read. I loved them. I did like one of the timelines more than another, but I did find all 3 to be interesting and engaging. It did take me a second sometimes when we go back to Catan and I believe Obitium were not as interesting for me. They were not my favorites. My favorite is Lucium. Sometimes when it transitions from Catan to Obitium and Lucium, I did find that it took me a little bit to get kind of into the pace, into the groove of which plotline we were following. I still found them all to be interesting, but I did find that something very exciting would be happening, and then we would cut to one of these other plot lines, and I would have to kind of readjust and like get back into the groove and the pacing of this secondary plot line. I don't know if that is a fault of the writing or if it's my brain having to kind of click into place, but I did find that it altered the pacing a little bit. I still think that this book is excellent and I really, really enjoyed it, but that was something that I guess I would critique, is that the pacing felt a little bit off because of the switches between plot lines. Which, now that I'm thinking about it and talking about it, I did also notice that in the Lycanius trilogy by James Islington. I found that at times when we switched from point of view to point of view, it kind of hurt the pacing of the story. It felt like we were being interrupted in the middle of like an episode and moving into a different episode or going back to 20 minutes before. Instead of finishing the high octane, intense activities that were happening, we were cutting in the middle of it and then moving on to something else. I think that it can work, but I don't know if Islington is doing it exactly how I would like to see that done. I know a lot of people compare the Hierarchy series to Red Rising. I think that that is a very apt comparison. I would say that Pierce Brown is a little bit better at cutting us off and going to another perspective than Islington. Maybe they could hang out and like take some notes together. That is a device that Pierce Brown uses in his writing, especially in the second series of Red Rising, which I just started and I will talk about soon. Brown is very, very good at giving us the amount of action and intensity that we want, and then giving us a little bit of like a cliffhanger to move on to another character or another point of view. John Gwynne also is really good at that. John Gwynne does it mid-battle. I think it is so mind-blowing. John Gwynne does it so well, especially in his Bloodsworn saga. In the final book of the Bloodsworn saga, there are battles that take place that we see the same battle and everything that is happening from multiple perspectives. One character is doing something and we're getting that character's perspective, and then we jump to another character who, instead of telling us what they're doing, they're watching somebody else. So we're getting like all of these perspectives mid-battle, and it never loses that pace. It stays intense and exciting and engaging and interesting to read. So maybe actually everybody should have like a a writing workshop with John Gwynn, because I think that he does that very, very, very well. I also saw someone talking about some editing errors in The Strength of the Few, and that they felt like because it was so popular, maybe it had kind of slid by on editing and that it could have used more time. I didn't have that problem. It may be because I alternated between listening to the audiobook and reading the physical, so I may have actually just missed the errors. So I would keep that in mind if you're about to pick this up. Maybe pick up the audiobook instead of the physical, because there may be some errors or inconsistencies that might take you out of the story. I didn't have that specific problem, but I do think it is something you should be aware of. Overall, I really love The Strength of the Few. I love James Islington. He is moving quickly into like favorite author territory. I gave this 5 stars. I think it was such a good time, and I would recommend picking up this series to pretty much anybody who has even a vague interest in fantasy. All right, friends, that was it for my January wrap up. I only read 2 books. It was super short. Going into February, I have already read Iron Gold, so I will be talking about that soon. And I have started The Poppy War. I would still like to get to Persuasion and The 13th Child. I don't know if I will be able to read 4 books in the shortest month of the year. It's kind of a lofty goal for me because, as you've seen, I don't always read that many books a month. But I'm really trying, and I'm working on some other things. I'm trying to create more time in my day for sitting down and reading, because it is something I really enjoy. And I find that I tend to put it on the back burner in lieu of other things. So I am working on carving out that time for myself and doing something that I really enjoy. Keep your eye out for February wrap up and possibly a solo review of a book that I really enjoyed recently. Thanks for hanging out.